Welcome to another episode. We're still working on a title for this podcast, but today we're going to talk about Magic the Gathering and our favorite artifacts. We're going to start by talking about what should be stock in any commander deck, and looks like we're leading off with the Arcane Signet.
The Arcane Signet is... I'm Joe. This is Ned, by the way. We haven't introduced ourselves. The Arcane Signet is a 2-mana mana rock, and it's just a basic card, but it's good in every commander deck because it gives you an extra mana. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, so you know it's going to be useful, even if it's 1 color, 2 color, 10 color, it doesn't matter.
Next up, we're going to talk about the Sol Ring. This is standard fare in every commander deck you buy off the shelf. It's a very good card. You pay 1 colorless, and you can tap it to get 2. It's I've had many games where I've had Sol Ring in my opening hand, so I'll lead with a land, tap it for the Sol Ring, and then tap Sol Ring for the Arcane Signet. Next turn, you have 4 mana, and that's always a good play when you can get mana acceleration.
It gives you a good ability to possibly even get your commander out on turn 2. And when that happens, your commander deck at that point is flying. Because a lot of cards we play is typically around the 4, 5, 6 mana mark. So yeah, by turn 2, if you can do that, you are on par for where you want to be. Our third one is a card we're going to call Commander Sphere, because that's what it's called. It's 3 mana, so it's a little more expensive, but it has an extra use to it. Early game, add 1 mana of any color to your commander's color identity. So obviously you're going to be playing these in every commander deck. And then it also has the function later in the game, you can sacrifice it to draw a card.
Right. So this is, again, standard fare in any commander deck you buy off the shelf. And if you're building from scratch, have a Commander Sphere, because it's a mana of any color. And like Joe said, in the mid to late game, once your mana is set, you can sacrifice it to draw something useful.
And if you have a scry ability in your deck, which I know you've done a couple times, you fix your cards and you fix your mana, and then you can also kind of fix what you draw on the next play. Very nice play.
The Thought Vessel is also a very good card. It's only 2 colorless to play it, and you can tap it for colorless, and it gives you the added bonus of no maximum hand size. So if you're running short on a particular color and you're not able to cast what you've drawn so far, it's not going to force you to discard, because the Thought Vessel says you have no maximum hand size.
It comes in handy in a lot of different ways. I've had decks that you just draw like crazy, and having this card in play, you don't have to discard. Great thing. If you have it early in the game and you're just not able to play stuff, I hate discarding. I don't think there's anything in the game I hate worse at the beginning of the game than being short on mana and then turn around and having to discard stuff. This card comes into play early. You don't have to worry about discarding. It makes it so much nicer. Even though you're behind the game, you still don't have to discard. Always a good thing.
I agree.
So now we're going to move on to the honorable mentions. These are just ones that we really like. We can't quite put in the top 5 of our favorites, but these are ones that we really, really like playing. And I'm going to start off with Door of Destinies. It is a 4 mana card, so it's a little bit on the higher mana side. But the nice thing about it is if you're playing tribal, elves, vampires, goblins, pirates, you name it, every time you play a creature, you have to choose a creature type. So obviously, in an elf deck, for example, you'd pick elf. Or a pirates deck, you pick pirates. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, you can put a charge counter on it. And then the final text says, creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destiny. So if you have a 1/1 elf, and you play 3 different elves, all of a sudden your 1/1 is now a 4/4, and that is a big powerhouse at that point.
It can be a game breaker. I remember that's one of the first cards I try to take off the board when you play it in your elves or in your vampires, because a 1/1 vampire that is now a 7/7 is a problem. It is a big problem. And so the quicker you can get that out of play, the easier your life will be. Argentum Armor. I have this in a couple of different decks, but I can't put it in my top 5 because it has such a high mana cost and it also has a high equip cost. 6 to cast and 6 to equip. But it's still a very good play because it gives whatever you attach it to a +6/+6, and then when that creature attacks, you destroy target permanent. It's a beautiful thing because you're not restricted on what you can target with that. You can hit a planeswalker, you can hit a land, you can hit a creature. It can really wreck your opponent's board state once you bring that in and start attacking with it because, like I say, there's no restriction on what you can target.
I know you've hit me with that a couple times, and you've totally directed my deck. I did not appreciate that. We're going to move to our top 5 now, which is our list. I'm going to start with one of my favorite cards. And I put this in virtually every single one of my deck. And it's not the most efficient card. But I love the fact that I hate having to discard, especially early game. You don't have a play. You're stuck discarding stuff. This card is really good for three different reasons. One, you're getting pounded. So gaining 5 life can be really huge in a game of Magic. It can keep you alive. You got to pay 2 to tap it. And then when you do, you can pay. You get 5 life. You can shuffle this and your graveyard back into your library. There is nothing handier to me than being able to take all my removal cards or all my creature cards that people are getting rid of and reshuffle them and redraw them. And plus, if I'm having a bad draw, it also gives you a shuffle. So it can make your bad draw turn into a really good draw.
I agree with that. And like a lot of the artifacts you'll see on our list today, it has 2 effects. So the gaining life is good and the reshuffle is good. So if you can get 2 effects out of any card, it's probably good to have it in your deck.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't always put it in every single one of my decks, but yeah, it's one of my go-to cards, especially when you're having shuffle problems. Now we're going to go to one of your favorite cards.
The Jester's Cap. I've been in love with this card ever since it was printed back in Ice Age. Back at that point in time, everybody was playing a format that was 60 to 70 cards in deck size. So you've got 4 of these in your deck. It's not often going to happen, but if you manage to get all 4 of them, that's 20% of your opponent's deck removed from the game. It's really hard to get cards back from exile, so you can take their most important things and just say, nope, you're not going to use that this game.
I've been on the receiving end of it, and believe me, Ned loves the card. I absolutely hate the card since the first time I've seen it, which he's had the deck with the Jester's Cap from almost the beginning. And let me just say, I hate that card. I can't stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough. But it is a very useful card and very nice. My next one on my list, and Ned had to remind me of how much I use this, because I don't realize sometimes how much I use it, but I do. But Helm of the Host, I think, is one of the really, really great cards of Magic. It's a little expensive, and it's not quite as bad as the Argentum Armor, but it is 4 mana to play, and it's 5 mana to equip. So it still is a pretty hefty price to do, but when you get it to go, it is just dangerous. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token is not legendary. If equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste. So basically, in essence, what it means by legendary is you can only have one on the battlefield at a time on any legendary card. Your commanders are legendary. Now, I just made a dragon deck, for example, where when it's in play, every time that I play a creature, then I get a second copy of the creature and it becomes non-legendary. With this Helm of the Host down, on my commander, Miriam, then whenever I play a dragon, or on the beginning of my combat step, I make a copy of my commander. So I'll get 2 Miriams at this point. It has haste because it's legendary, which means I can attack with both of them on the same turn. And then after that, when I throw a dragon creature down, instead of getting 2, I'm going to get 3 because that's what his text does. Because I have 2 of them down. And then the next turn I get another one on the combat steps, so that would give me 3 on the next turn, 4, and so on and so forth. So I keep multiplying everything, and that deck already gets out of hand as it is. But with the Helm of the Host, it gets insane.
Yeah, most every creature that is legendary for a reason. They don't want you to have more than one on the battlefield because it will throw the game out of balance. Helm of the Host gets around that rule, so it's a good add for just about any commander that you're pulling the trigger on something that it has in the text.
Or even non-commander cards. There's a lot of good ones for that, too. Agent of Treachery is a good example. I'm going to steal your crap, and now I get to steal more crap. And then I get to steal more crap. So anyway, we'll go on to Ned's next one.
Akroma's Memorial. Now, it's a heavy mana cost at 7, but look at all of the things that it does. This applies to every creature you control. They will get flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black, and protection from red. How do you say no to that? It's an incredible card. I use it in several different decks, and again, having all of those abilities is just nasty.
What makes it even nastier is if you really don't understand the concept of some of these terms, we'll explain it to you real quick. First one is flying. That's obvious. Anything on the ground cannot hit it unless it has reach or flying on the creature. First strike, you hit it. Whatever damage you do with this creature first will happen. So if you have let's say you have a 5/5 Lyra Dawnbringer, which is a 5/5 angel that gives all other angels lifelink, which is another ability, then all of a sudden it has first strike. So if I'm blocking it with a 3/3, that Lyra's Dawnbringer will do 5 damage to it, kill the creature, so that creature will do absolutely 0 damage back to you. Vigilance means it does not tap, so that means that you still have it there to block. Trample means that any damage that goes over the creature, like I said, a 3/3, 3 damage will hit the creature, kill the creature, then the other 2 damage will hit the person. Haste means that you can attack on that turn, and protection from black and red. So if you have any black or any red on your creature, it is automatically protected from it, so it will not take damage.
And that also applies to red and black planeswalkers, instants, and sorceries. So things like Star of Extinction is a go-to of mine. I'll sometimes throw a Star of Extinction in my own deck because I wait for Akroma's Memorial to be on the field, play the Star of Extinction. My creatures are fine, but it's going to do 20 damage to all the rest of the field. So again, if you have a mass effect like that is red or black, it'll protect your own things from it.
And sometimes it's just not fair. It's just not fair. Next one we're going to go to is actually a basic one, but it's Crucible of Worlds. I've done several land construction decks where it's based on how the lands play. Landfall. I have a lot of bounce lands. So having this in your hand and being able to play it is actually very handy in a lot of decks we play nowadays. It is 3 mana, and then basically it's just one effect, but you may play lands from your graveyard. So basically, I get a search land. Evolving Wilds is a good example. So I'll put that in my discard pile on, say, Ned's turn. And while he's going, I'll search and find a basic land and then put it in play. With Crucible of Worlds down the next turn, I'm not drawing lands, so I put down Crucible of Worlds. I go into my graveyard and play my Evolving Wilds again for a land play from my graveyard, and then I can turn around and sacrifice it again and again and again and keep fixing my mana. It's a very nice card. It's like I said, it's a simple card, but it can be very, very effective if you have search cards in your discard pile.
Right, and it's also effective if you have things on the board that force you to discard or sacrifice a land from play. You can just keep going with that because you're playing lands from graveyard that have already been sacrificed once.
Yes, sir.
What are we going to next?
Vanquisher's
Like
Oops,
the
I went too far.
Vanquisher's Banner. Okay. I really like this card. This is another artifact. It's 5 to play, but I like it because it gives you 2 effects. You choose a creature type, so again, mostly in tribal decks, but you choose a creature type, and then creatures you control of that type get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, you get a card draw. So your boys are a little bit bigger, and you're accelerating through your deck because you're drawing an extra card with each cast.
And I know this card with Door of Destinies is just a beast. Because then you're going through your deck, you're making you guys bigger, and all that stuff. But yeah, those are 2 really good combo cards for tribal decks. But Vanquisher's Banner is a very, very strong card, and it's not going to give you a crap load of power, but that card draw can make a huge advantage for sure.
Absolutely. Anytime you can draw extra cards in the game of Magic, do it, because it's an advantage every
Absolutely.
time.
Next one we're going to go to is going to be Fodder Cannon. Now, this one is not one of those that I really like putting in decks because it really isn't that strong, I don't think. There's a lot of things you can do a lot better. But in tribal decks, it can come in handy. But the text on the card is exactly the reason why it's one of my favorite. The Fodder Cannon is a 4 mana to play and 4 mana to activate. So it really doesn't do a lot. It's good in tribal decks that makes a lot of tokens. But you pay 4, you tap it and sacrifice a creature. That's a pretty hefty price. But Fodder Cannon deals 4 damage to target creature. The part that I like about it is the text. Step 1, find your cousin. Step 2, get your cousin into the cannon. And step 3, find another cannon. Sorry, find another cousin. Man, I can't talk all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was... I don't remember where we first saw this card, but it was very humorous. I remember you were laughing out loud as you read it, and you're right, it's not a great effect, but it is a very, very humorous flavor text.
It was originally in my starter of my goblin deck. That's where it was. Because I was generating so many goblins, it was doable.
Right.
But yeah, the price on it is ridiculous. I don't like what all you have to do with it. But that's text. Step 1, find a cousin. Step 2, get your cousin in the cannon. And step 3, find another cousin. I can't stop laughing at that. Even after years of playing this card, I still find it hilarious.
Alright, so now... Chromatic Orrery. 7 mana to play. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. You tap it for 5 colorless, or you can pay 5 colorless and tap it to draw a card. This is another artifact where you're getting multiple uses out of one card. You're getting the able to spend mana as though it's any color, so if you're only drawing mountains and you need an island, problem solved. Then you can tap it for 5 colorless, which again can be used as mana of any color, or if you're set on mana, you can just pay 5 and tap it to draw a card. So
it's actually for each color among permanents you control. So you actually get 5 cards out of that.
potentially.
But
yeah, I like it because you can use it for more than one effect. is why I put it in so many different decks.
And especially when you're playing multiple colors, that first ability really, really comes in handy because it doesn't include just this card. It is lands, mana rocks, mana dorks, you name it. It includes everything. So basically, your mana is fixed at this point with this card.
So I've got.
Okay. This is probably one of my most used cards here, and this is my top one probably. Actually, I forgot about this card, and Ned brought it up again. But yeah, this is one of the ones I put in almost every deck.
It's true.
It's a really cheap. It's really expensive, and it fixes your deck. It fixes your deck. You pay one, and it comes onto the board. You pay another one, and you look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. That fixes your draw so easily and so well. You got 2 lands on top, and then underneath that is a powerhouse card that you really need to really make your deck go. This fixes it so that card can be on top instead of underneath the 2 lands. And then the last ability is to tap it, draw a card, then put it on top of the deck, replacing the card that's on top, basically. So your next draw is going to be this card. So your deck is fixed. I've also messed up on that a couple times, but, you know, that's a different story. But, yeah, being able to just fix your cards and be able to just play with what you got and be able to make the most effective card be the one that you draw every time. Or, you know, if you're not drawing lands, but your third one down's a land, your mana short, that's always nice, too.
Yeah, deck manipulation is a powerful game mechanic, whether you're using this or sacrifice lands to search for a basic. Anytime you can manipulate what's happening in your deck. I'm a big fan of scrying, but this is pretty much the next best thing to scrying because it's 3 cards versus just your top 1.
And then we got one more card, and we both like this card, but I know Ned uses it a lot more than I do. So I'll let him talk about it.
The Great Henge. Spell is X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So technically 9, but significantly less, especially if you're playing green, because green has big creatures by its very nature. You tap it, add 2 green, and gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. So this one artifact is giving you 4 different effects. You're gaining life, you're adding mana, and when you cast, that creature gets a 1/1 counter and you're drawing an extra card. How do you say no to that?
And I think the price represents how good the card is, too, because it's an expensive card. But yeah, 2 mana, 2 life. Can't argue that. Every time you tap it for mana. And having that card draw and the 1/1 counters on your new creatures, yeah, you can't beat it.
It can get obscene. I only play this in a few decks because it does have such a heavy mana cost and a heavy price tag, but it's absolutely brilliant what it can do. And the decks I do have it in have an effect called Proliferate, which you take any number of counters on things, be they 1/1 counters or effect counters like First Strike, and you put another of that kind of counter on the same card. So the +1s grow exponentially, and again, the card drawing is an advantage every time you can do it.
I think one of the biggest advantages to this card, and obviously this is the last card we're going to talk about, but one of the biggest advantages about it is the fact they put it in the most obnoxious color they can when it comes to the creature types. If you think about it, how many times can you get a creature, most colors when you play a creature, I kind of changed my focus there, but most times when you play a creature, if you have a 6/6 power creature, you're paying 6. If you have a 7/7, you're paying 7, for example. In green, it's obscene that you can have Steel Leaf Champion as a good example. It is a 5/4 for 3 mana. 5/4 for 3. So on turn 1, or not turn 1, but turn 2, obviously, there's a good possibility you might be able to get that out because of all your mana rocks and mana dorks. Because of that, it is a 5 power, and that makes this 9 mana card all of a sudden become a 4 mana card. Very, very useful.
Yeah, another one that comes to mind is the Lovestruck Beast. It is a 5/5, but he's only 3 mana to play.
Mm-hmm.
So your Great Henge at that point is only 4 mana, and if you had 3 for the Lovestruck Beast, you will likely have 4 next turn or the turn after to be able to cast Great Henge.
My daughter just came in the door. Hello, beautiful girl.
What?
Anyway, yeah, this pretty much sums up our video, but these are some of our favorite commander cards that we play. And, again, my daughter got home from school, so we get to say hi to her. Hello.
Hi, Macy.
And that is our video for the day. Stay tuned for the next time. We're trying to do it on Mondays, but sometimes that doesn't quite work. We will start posting them. We will start posting them as soon as we figure out the name of the page and we get the intro start into it. And at that point, we're going to have this video going. So, yeah, we'll be good to go. Any final thoughts?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, we got nothing is pretty much what we got. So we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good night.